Here
Hi,
we are.
here we are.
Look at us getting
Back.
on to record.
I know. It's
So nice.
yeah, it feels refreshing because I feel like there are a lot of times that things are happening in life and in the world where I'm like, oh, we should like talk about this. And I mean, sometimes we do talk about it, but we're not recording while
I
we're
know.
talking about it as we used to be.
Or we talk about it via shared memes on Instagram
Exactly. We send
or
memes back and
TikToks,
forth.
which is everybody I'm sure is like, yep, yep, me too. um,
Yeah.
well, first of all, welcome back everybody to Cheaper Than Therapy. Here we are.
Hey,
Hey,
here we are.
um, if you're a new listener, welcome. Here we are. You're going to get a whole lot of information from me and Dene. If you're an old listener, welcome back. We're so grateful for you. And
Mhm.
please make sure to go and give a review and maybe a rating on Apple or wherever you listen to the podcast because it's what gets it out to more listeners. So, Dene, we wanted to talk today about a hot topic.
It's funny. Danae, what did
Dene.
I do? What? Yeah, I feel like I know something is like super alive in the cultural zeitgeist when a bunch of people keep sending me something and saying,
Yeah.
"Have you heard about this?" And on Saturday, four people sent me clips or something. One of them is a mutual friend of ours who sent us on a thread things about this woman who was, I mean, do you really understand what, like, how do you even break down what's happening? But basically, she fell in love with her psychiatrist,
Hmm.
right? There
Hmm.
was a lot of transference happening.
Hmm.
And what I think is interesting about this story is the whole juxtaposition. And I think we should always be clear whenever we're bringing up something about a specific person, to me, it's not that we're talking about the specific person so much as like we're talking about the cultural trend and what is underneath it.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
that she was getting a lot of feedback from AI about what was
Yes.
happening within the situation that I think is what we wanted to sort of bring in because some of
Yeah.
this is problematic and that you're hearing so much that people are pulling back from therapy and from working with clinicians in favor of sort of trading that in for technology, right?
Yeah, so the like super top level is like you said, she fell in love with her psychiatrist, but we're talking years of working together. I mean, my perspective, right? There's a lot of projection. There's a lot of things happening. She was trying to get clarity, and then to your point, she started talking to Chat to get clarity, and Chat started giving her all of this, like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. Like, you should use this language with him, and we're hearing more and more. I don't know if you heard the story the other day about the guy who, I don't know if he ended up being admitted, but he had essentially what they're calling like a psychotic break because he was talking to Chat about discovering some new version of like some new equation in mathematics or something, and Chat was saying like, oh my god, yes, you've found this new thing, and kept like feeding
Mm.
into this almost like this delusion. And he kept going and going and going until this guy actually, I mean, essentially was disconnected from reality so much, right, that he had to be admitted. And so I guess I could just give that example too, to even say it's not even just like, oh, let me use Chat as like a therapy tool, but it's like the example we're talking about, which this woman was like, oh, give me feedback on this specific kind of
Exactly.
relational dynamic, right? Or situation. Or this other guy that I'm saying, where he's just like asking Chat for basically, it's like confirmation bias, right? It's like, tell me what I
Mm.
want to know. Um, and we're hearing more and more about this. And I know, your mentor, Estelle Perel, has a lot of feelings too about how AI is going to change therapy moving forward. So I think it's just a hot topic right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were at her annual conference sessions a few months ago, and Esther said that, so much of what she has been hearing people say is that the trend is going to move so significantly towards technology that like most people will not be seeing a therapist within like 10 years. And there was like an audible gasp within the audience. But what I think is really, I have so many thoughts on this because I think there's a way that if we bring it back to the story with the young woman who fell in love with her psychiatrist, in case someone doesn't know this, and I think this is an important clarification for someone who's never seen a psychiatrist, it is very different in terms of a clinical relationship than you have with a psychotherapist. Meaning, normally, when you see a psychiatrist, it's like for 20 minutes
Mhm.
once a month, normally,
Mhm.
maximum. It's not as intimate, long conversations that you will have, and like that level of a relational container that you have in therapy. And I think that's important because to me that says immediately when I'm hearing some of the things that she was saying in some of those clips that I watched, I'm like, this sounds like there must have been a significant amount of projection happening, because I just cannot imagine that any of these conversations would have gotten that in depth in 20, 30 minutes, right? Once a month. And that the tricky thing about when you're seeing a psychiatrist and that you are sort of under their medical care is that, ChatGPT, and I don't know, I mean, I didn't like follow it to the extent that I know all of the things ChatGPT was telling her was happening, but they can't just sort of what's the word I'm
Like
looking for?
terminate care.
Terminate. Thank you. They can't just terminate because you are under their medical care and you
It's a
are
a
like
medical license, yeah.
they're prescribing medicine. So they
Mhm.
have to sort of be monitoring how you are doing on your medication. And there's just so many variables that are problematic about sort of asking ChatGPT their thoughts on something. And as you said, what I have experienced and I've heard many people speak to is ChatGPT has a very sort of positive, like,
Mhm.
reinforcement bias
Yeah.
in that it is just sort of confirming your perspective
Yes.
and really validating how you're feeling a lot of times and telling you things that feel good, not sort of giving you a lot of feedback about what might be problematic around the way that you're holding this, you know what I mean?
It's not a critical thinker, let's put it that way. I've
Yeah.
even said, even from like a creative perspective, right? I mean, just as a little bit of a bird walk here, but in using it as like a writing editor, right? Like an editor assistant or writing assistant, whatever you want to call it. There has been times where I've actually said to my chat, like, you're just telling me what I want to hear. I need you to
Mm,
critically like look at this page and tell me where there's holes or there's things that don't make sense so I can go back in and redo it. And it has a hard time doing that. Even
mm,
when you challenge it and even when you say to it, I want you to do this, I want you to give me, honest editorial feedback or whatever, even just on a creative lens, it actually struggles to do that.
mm,
And so you and I had shared another reel where a woman who had actually led a research study, and I want to give this for the listeners who have never heard of this term, but it's called sycophancy.
mm,
So I wrote this down because I was like, oh, I want to make sure that I know what this word is because I think we're going to start hearing this more and more, right? So
mhm,
sycophancy and AI models is essentially what you're saying, which is telling somebody that they're amazing and they're right even when they're wrong, right?
mm,
And so what she was saying is that there is an inherent way that AI models are actually trained this way, but then on top of that, human reinforcement kind of cements that loop more and more, right? So even if we're saying to our chat models, I want you to be objective. We have already given it feedback multiple times, like, oh, thanks for that. Oh, I appreciate that feedback. And like, we are telling it, like, we're grateful for it telling us what we want to hear. Right. And so
mm,
then when I say something like, oh, I go to chat and I say, be critical in the way that you look at this piece of, writing that I've done, it makes sense that then it struggles to do that because it's already been trained almost not to do that. Right. And, you know, what she did recommend is essentially what I just said I did, which is like we actually do have more control, so she says, than we think we do. But she said on her AI, she says very frequently, she asks it to be objective. She asks it to push back, tell her what she's not seeing. And she also says that she directly asks, are you just telling me what I want to hear? And she said, if you do that enough, it will kind of interrupt the pattern, but you have to be diligent about it. And I just don't think that it's like we've been unleashed upon this like insanely intelligent tool and none of us have been trained to use it. Right? It like was unleashed on the world with like zero training. And so it's no wonder that these kind of things are happening.
yeah. I mean, so many things. I saw a clip the other day with Mel Robbins talking to someone about this technology and
Hmm.
how much people are using it as a therapeutic tool. And it's interesting that it's coming up so frequently with people talking about it in terms of therapy or
Therapy.
that type of support. And I mean, obviously, our ears perk forward when we hear that. But I do hear a lot of conversations around people using it in that context. And here's what I think is fascinating, that one, I think so many people are really appreciating it at
Mhm.
this point because of its willingness to give you an answer, which
Mhm.
is the thing that we know
Mhm.
we don't do as therapists. We will not just give you an answer. We will stay in the space of curiosity around whatever, but I don't have your answers for you, so I'm not going to give you an answer. Um, and Mel was saying, the problem is that there's just no, what did she say? Oversight, and there's no one
Mm,
sort of
that's right.
like on top of this. And I was like, there never has been.
No.
PS. And like, who's going to oversee the overseers? Like,
Yeah,
at
right.
some point, what this is asking of all of us is to get really clear about our relationship with ourselves and where we are outsourcing our power. Now, I think, to your saying that this has been unleashed on us, I think that's by design.
Oh,
I think this
100%.
is by design to really get us invested in another form of technology where we are able to outsource our power, where we are able to be distracted. I think the more that we sort of start to lean into the belief that something outside of me is something that I need in order to do all of the things that I do on a daily basis, I think that's the point. I think that's what they would prefer. I was working with a group last night and I was talking about just like the elements of our magic and our feminine
Mm,
and our intuitive gifts that I also see coming online. It's so funny. And this is like a random, it's so real. Like this morning, I woke up with like the strongest this friend of mine who like I have not talked to in a while, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to reach out to her and see how she's doing."
mm,
And it's just one of those things, V, where like the
yep.
only reason I know that we have like gifts is because I haven't thought about her
Yeah,
with
it's
such a
that
strong
intuitive
like
hit.
oof, right?
Yeah.
And literally I like once I meditated, I reached over and I like got my phone and there was a message from her. And I was like,
Mhm.
oof, like those moments, right? But those are the things that not only are we becoming more clear our capabilities within us, but I think that those things are going to be an adaptive response if we are willing to say, I'm not going to believe in this technology being more powerful than I am, this technology knowing more than I
Mhm.
know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Kind of a silly image, but the image that just flashed in my mind is, from Wall-E. When they're all up in the spaceship and they're all, hovering in these, like, little hover scooter things, and they have, like, no bone density anymore because they don't
Mm,
ever walk, and everything just they're in screens all the time, and they just float around all day. None of them, like, they don't have any passion, they don't have any work, they don't have any relationships with real people anymore, right? It's all
that's
through the
right.
screen. And it just reminded me of that, like how this is essentially where we're headed, right? I mean, I say that as like that's like the doomsday theory, but um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm 100% in line with you. I think once you start looking at things, and I think this is, I don't know, I'll speak for myself, but I think partly just how I've always been. Maybe it's my Aquarius rising, but to be able to see like the social context of something at the same time as being able to see the individual context. But depth psychology really was a training ground for this, right? Like this idea that the social and the individual can't be extracted from one another. They can't be, separated. And
Mhm.
so once you really start looking through that lens, it's impossible not to see the larger workings of like the why, right? Like, why is this happening? And it's not just about this one person who fell in love with her psychiatrist and chat said this. It's like, no, this is part of something larger. And it's not about conspiracy. It's just about like questioning the why, questioning who this serves, questioning who this doesn't serve, right? And to your point, questioning like what has to come online, what has to go offline in order for this to continue functioning, right? Or to get bigger.
Right.
And I think it really allows us, I guess, that perspective to be able to ask these larger questions. And then to be able to decide like, do I want to partake in this or do I not want to partake in this?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. To me, I've heard so many people sort of talking about like if you are not on board with understanding how to use this technology, you're
Mm,
going to be in trouble and you're going to be left behind. And while I don't ever wanna, like, sort of villainize or sort of black and white things. I wanna stay in the space of curiosity. I am not someone who is just, like, mostly because I'm, like, at a age and stage in my life where I still want to, like, keep certain skill sets sharp. Like, I don't use
Sure.
ChatGPT for all of these things because I like the discomfort that it brings up in me a lot of times to, like, have to figure out how to, like, word things as myself, and I know that there are
Mhm.
ways that, I see a lot of people like, "Yeah, and this can be done more efficiently and more maybe, like, savvily than me," and that's okay, right? Like, I think that,
Mhm.
I'll be like that person on a typewriter while we're all, like,
On
on
computers.
keyboards and, that might be me, but I think, with what you were saying about the conspiracy elements of it, I think I don't know, there's just so much there's a point at which what people are calling conspiracy is really at the point of, like, I refuse to, like, be a grown up and
Mm.
question. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just nope, it's more comfortable to trust that Big Brother and big government has our back and
Actually
is
care.
cares about us and wants what's best for us, and it's like, not good. Okay. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, sure, for sure. I don't
Yeah.
know that historically that would be the case, but if all of a sudden they've decided to do the right thing, I love that for
I mean, that would be
you know,
great, right?
here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of go back to this idea of using it as a therapist. Well, I guess one thing I want to say first is I remember seeing this meme a while ago that said something like, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, I'm horrible at remembering exactly what things say, but basically it was like, I want chat to, or not chat, but like I want AI to help me do things like dishes and laundry so that
Mm,
I have more time to write and be creative, not be creative for me and write for me so that I have more time to do dishes and laundry.
hmm.
And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, like, that's it, right? Like, going back to what we were saying about this serving a larger purpose. Um, it's so much of what you and I talk about around coming home to the self and inner belonging and fighting against self-abandonment and learning ways around that, because really what I see this doing is it's taking away, to your point, the feminine. It's like our creative drive, right? Our connection to soul, our connection to intuition. And so it's almost like we become further like we're like slogging, right? Like cogs in a wheel. I don't know what image I'm trying to show, but even like in the way people are producing content now, it's all happening simultaneously. As AI has become more popular in like the work that we do, for example, like I mean more like the online kind of social media work, the more content is being expected to be produced. And that's not coincidence. Like that's happening at the same time because now, to your point about efficiency, well, now I can produce 10 pieces of content in the same time that it used to take me to make one, because I have 10 different AI tools that do all the work for me. And I don't really need to think or be creative anymore. And so what I've seen is then the expectation of the amount of production goes up. There's no way that's only happening in like the social media and creative field. I know that that's happening across all fields. And so to go back to that meme or that quote I was talking about, it's exactly that. It's like, well, here, let me take and outsource your feminine, your creativity, your life force so that you can continue slogging, right? You'll have more time to slog more, to do more, rather than the time to like be, right? Be still, be quiet, be with yourself. And I think, again, like going back to depth, I mean, when I look at depth and I think about it as being like a soul to soul connection, right? And I think about this idea of it's a soul working with another soul. Like that is the way that we view the type of therapy that we both practice. Um, I don't know that that's doable with AI. I mean, I think you could try, but like there's not a soul there. So I do think it's a little bit different than asking chat, give me 5 ways to reduce my anxiety in the present moment and have it like regurgitate to you from the internet, five, I don't know, CBT techniques or something, right? It does
But
feel different.
even in that, like,
Yeah.
again, what Mel Robbins was saying is true.
Yeah.
Nobody is like, are those 5 techniques effective? Are those
Right.
5 techniques actually supportive or
Where is it
harmful?
coming
I
from?
was
Yeah.
I was looking up something that was like a synopsis of my book, and I'm like, I never said that in my book. Like, that is not from my book, and it is
Yep.
like, if you Google sovereign love, like, it is in there, ChatGPT's
Yep.
synopsis of my book,
It's the same thing
but
with cheaper than
nobody's
therapy, by the way. I did the same thing, and chat has done cheaper than therapy, and it says stuff, and I'm like, what is this? This isn't our stuff.
so that's important if we get to the point where there's nothing that is like, and what are facts ever anyway, right?
I
But
know.
also at some point, it's like, I don't know. And I always come back to all of this is the invitation back home to ourselves and to moving from the space of an inner authority. But also, I just believe like what is going to be valuable and novel is going to be human beings and our human capabilities and the
Connection.
extent to which you are able to do all of these things without technology, I think is going to be like my opinion, I think is going to be people's strength because the more that this is like the baseline of what
Mm.
companies
Yeah.
outsource and I think we're just going to have to create a different kind of world that is going to be maybe simultaneous with those who are interested in continuing to be in connection with other human beings. I truly believe that.
Yeah. What I guess where what what just popped up in my mind is this idea that I am also like an information nerd, or like I like to research and I like to get my hands dirty in that way. And so I'm also very interested in understanding what it is. And like I use chat, like I was just saying, I've used it as like, an editor tool and things like that. And I use it for a lot of like structure. So like if I'm putting together something for 10 weeks, give me an idea of like what that flow could be, right? Top level, like 30,000 foot stuff. And I find it to be really helpful. And then I go in and I do kind of the nitty gritty. But I guess I say all that to say I also think that there is an importance for some of us, not all of us, because like for example, for you, it's like you're just not interested in that. You don't want to get involved in certain tools, and that's fine. I do think it's important for some of us to also like me being a nerd and be like, well, let me get in there and understand how this works, because to a certain extent, it's almost like Trojan horse style, right? Like I also want to know the ins and the outs of this. So, for example, when somebody comes to me, a client comes to me and says, oh, I've had this experience, I can be like, oh, I have a direct experience with that. Let's talk about it.
Mhm.
Because I find it to be really helpful for me. And so I think it will be important as we continue, whatever this evolution looks like with AI, for some of us to at least be like, oh shit, like I've touched that stove and it's hot. And then I think it's going to be really important for others like you to say, absolutely not. Like I'm going to lead the way this way. Right. And I think that when it comes to like self work, to go back again to what you were saying about we just don't do that. That is not our role
Mm.
as therapists, as coaches, right? Is no, I say coaches. I mean, I guess that is a little bit more of the role of the coach is to try to give you advice, but we're not here to tell you what to do because we don't know what is best for you. And
Mm.
I think when somebody does pretend that they know what's best for you, whether that's a person or whether that's a robot, an AI model, that in and of itself is something that you should question. That should raise alarm bells for you. Nobody knows what's right for you because nobody is you. Again, robot or human.
Yeah. And even like what is lost a lot of times. And I think my
Mm,
concern with it is that I always come back to anytime that I am outsourcing my power, that is something that can become addictive, that I
mhm,
believe now that that is where my power resides. Like I always come back to the musicians that I used to see in the 12-step rooms that were like, I can't do the thing sober because I believe the sober, or excuse me, I believe the magic is in whatever the drug was, right?
mm,
We start to believe the technology knows how to do this better than I
mhm,
can. The
mhm.
technology can write up whatever the thing in a way that I cannot,
The
right?
text message to my boyfriend because I wanted to communicate this. Dude, people are even doing
Exactly.
that. Yep.
Like, and we're so atrophied anyway
I
in
know.
our ability to be in human connection that I just, God, I like saw one of those like virtual reality things that my little kid's friend had gotten as a gift. And I was like these kids with like virtual reality playing next to one another. And I was like, no, like
Not talking, but in their
this
own
is
little
not
worlds.
cool, man. Like, we need to, like, see the ghost of Christmas yet to come a little bit here, and that there's already so many ways that I see people are just really struggling to be present, not only with other people, but, like, with themselves and believing in
Mm,
themselves and their ability to do these things that I just am like, Yeah, and again, I don't wanna, like, villainize or hold something in a black and white way, but I just really think that it becomes like, if I need this thing to do this for me,
Mhm.
what would I do if it weren't here,
Mhm.
right? How would I do this without that thing?
And I actually don't think you're doing black and white. I think what you're doing right now is beautifully articulating the yes and.
Yeah.
I think that's what that is, right? Which is again, my yes and. I'll use it for editing, I'll use it for a 30,000-foot planner, and I'm not going to let it be my creativity, right? Like, what
Mhm.
does the yes and for you look like as we start to adopt these new tools? Because they're here,
Yeah.
period, right? Like, they're not going away. And so, how do we all think critically and hold these tools in a yes and type of way? Where, to your point, if we can get really self reflective with maybe like asking questions like, am I trying to bypass discomfort by
Mm.
using this tool in this way, right? So the example I just gave about, I had a client who was in a long distance relationship and they were having an argument and she was using chat to help her write her emails to him. Oh, right? And so, and I'm not judging that person, but I think this is a great example of that question, which is, am I trying to bypass discomfort by using this tool, right? What part of my power am I outsourcing by using this tool? Like, I think there are ways that we can question our relationship to it as we continue to evolve our relationship to it that will help us stay in that yes and not become slaves to it, almost like we are with our phones now, honestly,
Slaves to it and just so completely not believing in our own
our own
power.
power. Yeah.
That to me is like, I hear that and I'm like, "Ugh," like,
I know. I
what is
know.
magical about you is that you are not a robot,
I
that
know.
you will not say the perfect thing in the email to your boyfriend, that you will be messy and you will say it wrong and you will have feelings about it. And that is like what connects us to one another as human animals. And I don't know, that kind of breaks my heart as I
Me
hear
too.
things like that because it's just such a reinforcement within my psyche of I am not enough.
Hmm. That's right. I have to look outside of myself because I am not enough. I have to trust in something else other than myself because I am not enough. Right. And
Is that a slippery slope?
I know. And, look, at the end of the day, relationally, we talk a lot about this idea of like resiliency, and resiliency is built through reps. I mean,
Mm,
resiliency is built through tangible doing and experiencing and embodied knowing, right? But you don't gain that embodied knowing. You don't increase your resiliency or your capacity by
mhm,
outsourcing that stuff, right? This is so much of our codependency conversations. This is why so many of us are atrophied because we've been outsourcing that shit since we were kids, right?
mm,
And we're only just now as adults trying to sit with our discomfort, trying to self-soothe, trying to now, outsource to this other person in my life. And so
mm,
this is just another way, another tool, another addiction, just like our phones. I'll say it again. I know very, very few people who I would not consider 100% addicted to their phones.
mhm.
Very few. Actually, honestly, if any, to be honest. And I think I think that one came and it came hard and it came fast. And I don't think a lot of us were questioning the way that we're questioning now with AI.
I'm laughing because the kids see it so clearly
They
too.
do.
Like,
They
they
do.
see the addiction. Like, yesterday, my kid's dad, like, came in, he was like, "I asked you to turn off that
Uh
TV."
huh.
And my kid was like,
Hmm.
"I asked you to turn off that phone." I died.
Oh my
I
God. Logan says
started
the
crying.
same shit to me and John.
I
Like,
was
I'll call
like,
your bluff.
"Oh, no,
What
you
do you even
didn't."
say? What do you even say in response? You're
And
like,
it's
touche,
literally all we could do is laugh because it's like, "You're right." And,
touche.
you know, like, all jokes aside, all realities of phone technology aside, I do think that there's going to be even more of a split in timelines in, like, those that are just, like, really going to come back home to themselves in the next few years and those that are going to continue to look outward for solution. And I think that the whole AI thing is like a part of that, right? Because if
Mhm.
we bring it back to the story we started with, certainly it seems pretty clear to both of us that there is more going on for this young woman, and like definitely like I just feel so much I was concerned about her, to be honest, as I was watching some of these clips, and I hope that she's doing okay, because I think to be, um, going through something and then also have it be in such a public sphere is just, like, really, really challenging, and I hope that she has
Destabilizing.
people around her that, are supporting her. But I think what is lost to me in this whole conversation around, and then I got the confirmation from AI, is like the inner work around like what is going on with me with this person? What is, historic here? What is like what I'm looking for really in this? And what am I afraid of? And,
Mm,
like in some of whatever this dynamic is that I'm sort of consumed with this person and distracting myself and defending against seeing something?
yeah. I think that those questions are good to add even to the ones that I was kind of trying to come up with around us just questioning our relationship to our reality, our
Mm,
relationship to our relationships, our relationship to AI, our relationships to our reality, right? We have to continue to come back to the space of questioning,
mhm,
to the yes and, to objectivity, like being able to see ourselves, being able to allow somebody else to reflect us back to ourselves, which so many
mm,
of us are defended against, you know? And even in a therapeutic relationship with a real human, like a real therapist, that happens a lot. People don't actually want the mirrored version of themselves, right? And so
yeah,
people aren't honest. They lie to their therapist. They maintain a persona even in the one room that they should hopefully not be doing that, right? And I think that also just speaks to how terrified we are of being seen. And I think this is just one more way for us to hide.
and what I've seen, and I don't know if you feel this, is life is creating sort of a quickening effect on our
Mm,
inability to do that, and it is creating circumstances that redirect us back to ourselves. And so if we try to continue to hide out and distract and lie to ourselves, it's like life's not going to let us do that anymore. There is a
mm-mm,
real significant shift in the way that we are able to lie to ourselves, that I've just certainly experienced myself, but also that I am just watching happening for so many people in the world around us.
amen. Well, ask yourselves those questions. Be curious
Mm,
to hear what comes up when you do. You want to shoot us a note because I think this is going to be something that is, I don't think, I know this is going to be something that's more and more present, right? As the
mm,
days go by. And we're going to be hearing more and more stories like this. And, there's already terms that are being given to certain types of mental health issues being exacerbated by AI. And so definitely, I'm sure more to come, but I think it's going to, again, to kind of reiterate everything we said, like require a lot of us to be able to be in a place of discernment
mm,
and a place of questioning and what if and yes and what else could be true, right? And so I guess I just want to offer that to anybody listening is like keep coming back to some of those questions as often as you can.
mm.
Mm. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening.